There's all sorts of articles out there that'll help you, that give you advice on, oh, how to read poetry like a professor, or how to read poetry like a scholar, or one thing or the other. Why should we? Why should we want to read poetry like a professor?
I
Like,
mean, tell
sit
me about it.
down and appreciate the poem for being a beautiful poem. Draw the message from it, draw the conclusions from it that hopefully you were intended to draw, but sit down and appreciate it. You don't have to go line by line and syllable by syllable and word by word and dissect it the
Hmm.
way that an English professor would. You don't have to be a professor to appreciate poetry any more than you have to be one to appreciate Shakespeare.
No, you don't.
You
And
don't
maybe,
for you don't have to have a master's degree or a doctorate to appreciate under the spreading chestnut tree the village smithy stands any more than you have to have one to appreciate once more unto the breach once more and plug up the hole with our English dead. So why not learn to read poetry like a truck driver or an accountant or a taxman or an IT guy?
mhm.
Why not learn to read poetry like an everyday guy?
Yeah, I mean that's a direct answer to my question about why should somebody in my position care, right? And you'd already given good answers to that before, but
You should care for the same reason that you should want to have beautiful art on your walls. Why you should have paintings and beautiful things in your home. You should surround yourself with beauty. Now, for me, it's not hard because I've got a beautiful wife and she's always here. But fill your house with beautiful things. Why? Because life would be very bland and dull and sad otherwise. People might go, oh, why'd you buy that painting to hang on the wall? It's not doing any good for you. Yeah, I don't care. It is
no, it
doing
is.
good for me.
It is.
I don't care that you can't see. I do care that you can't see it because it makes me sad. And it is performing a function, and that is being a painting, being beautiful, and being something that we can learn from and draw conclusions about, or just sit and look at and take in. Poetry is the same way. There's a lot of people who are like, well, poetry doesn't accomplish anything. Yeah, it does. For one thing, it makes you smarter. I'm not really sure what the statistics are on that, but I think the people that frequently read and listen to good poetry, they're probably a little bit more down to earth and more quote unquote intelligent than the average person that does not. If you want something quantifiable, there it is. Now, that's not necessarily a good reason for poetry. The reason you should be reading poetry is just because you should be reading poetry. And poetry is good and poetry is beautiful. So partake in it.
And to your point about the mode and the way in which we ought to encounter poetry and paintings for that matter, you know, treating or taking them in like an ordinary person and not like an academic. I mean, if I think about the academic way of doing that, yeah, it would be dissecting it word for word. What does this mean? And maybe getting into the deeper meanings of why, and there, of why he chose this versus another thing, and what that may have meant in a particular context of the time. And it's like, yeah, you can
Mm-hmm.
get there through scientific study, um, of this work of art, of this poem, of this painting, whatever the case is. But you're probably better off, yeah, just consuming that like an ordinary person, and then letting the curiosity of an ordinary person take you deeper down. Like, why did he say that? What did this mean at the time? Oh, it meant this. And then you read it again, and you've learned something new. And then you
Mm-hmm.
naturally just ask yourself a different question. Um, learn some, learn something new. Read it again. It's a new thing. It's even more beautiful. Or you read it, um, and then you thought about it in the context of your life experiences and what you know, and that was really cool. And then you forget about it for a year, and then you go back to it, and now it's got a new meaning.
Yeah.
And my point with this is just approaching it like an ordinary person. It's more simple, and yet it's still evergreen. There's always something new. There's always something more beautiful. You know, why do people like me? Why do so many people love Lord of the Rings? Many reasons, but one of them is because it's evergreen. You know, I have read it a number of times. I've listened to content about it, in a number of ways. And yet, just going back through the fellowship recently, like, learning about the conspirators and all this other stuff, like, I'm just struck by the beauty of it, of Tolkien's
Mm.
writing. And it's like, how many times did I gloss over that in the past? You know? And poetry's got to be the same way.